Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really powerful story about perseverance. It's all about what can happen when you just refuse to quit.
So it all really begins with this one line. And this is more than just a quote, you know? It became a personal mantra, a promise that was whispered every single night. And it's what fueled this incredible journey against, well, pretty much all the odds.
All right, let's set the scene. Our story starts in a small, dusty town, and that's where we meet a young boy named Adil. Now, he's the son of a poor tailor and a housemaid, and his life was really simple, but his dreams, they were anything but.
There's just this huge gap between his world and what he wanted. On one side, you've got this harsh reality, a life with no electricity, trying to study by the light of a dim oil lamp. And on the other side, this massive dream to become a writer, to move people with his words.
And this really gets to the heart of it. This story wasn't just about the challenges on the outside. It was all about an internal fire, a hope that burned way brighter than any lamp and just refused to be put out by his circumstances. But Adil's path wasn't just blocked by poverty. It was also filled with these loud, constant voices of doubt and flat-out ridicule. At school, his dreams seemed, well, especially out of reach. He was just an average student. He had messy handwriting, his grammar wasn't great, and he even stuttered when he had to read out loud. So to his classmates, the idea of him becoming a writer, it seemed like a total joke.
And yeah, they made sure he knew it. This quote isn't just some mean comment. It represents that constant external doubt he had to face every single day. These were the words that were designed to just crush his spirit. But in response to all that noise, he developed this incredibly powerful internal mantra. This was like his shield. He'd whisper this promise to himself, and he basically turned their insults into fuel. He knew his pace, but he was completely committed to the journey.
And that commitment, it eventually leads to this huge turning point. This is where one single person's belief becomes the catalyst that would change the entire direction of Adil's life.
So years go by, with Adil just filling up notebook after notebook with his secret stories and poems. He never showed them to anyone. But then one day, completely by chance, his English teacher, Mr. Rahim, found a notebook he'd left behind in class. After Mr. Rahim found that notebook, he pulled Adil aside and told him this: "You have a gift. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." For a boy who had only ever heard ridicule, those words, well, they were everything. It was the first time anyone had ever validated him, and it gave him the permission he needed to actually believe in himself.
So with this new encouragement, Adil finally starts to share his work. But success was definitely not immediate. His first steps out into the world were met with what most of us would just call failure.
He entered his first competition and lost. His second try, he didn't even make the shortlist. Now, this is where most people would stop, right? But Adil, he treated each loss like a lesson. He studied other authors, he read, he practiced every day, and then he entered a big national competition. And this just shows such a powerful shift in his mindset. Adil figured out something really profound. Failure wasn't the opposite of success. For him, failure was the path to it. It was the road he absolutely had to walk down to reach his goal. And that path led him right to a moment that changed his whole life. A brown envelope arrives in the mail. Inside, there's a letter confirming that his story, and I love this title, "The Boy with the Broken Pencil," had won first prize. The dream was finally becoming real. But this victory, it wasn't the finish line. Nope, it was just the beginning of the next chapter. A much longer journey, sure, filled with new struggles, but one that would ultimately see him fulfill that dream he'd had for so long. So let's trace his path from there. The prize money gets him a scholarship to go study literature in a big city. But even there, surrounded by students who had it a lot easier, he still struggled with self-doubt. And yet, he just worked harder than ever, until finally, he published his first book, with a title that perfectly mirrored his own life. But Adil never forgot where he came from. He actually went back to his old school to share the most important thing he'd learned. He told the students that success has nothing to do with your starting point. It has everything to do with your staying power. He left them with this one last, really powerful thought. It's a complete reframing of winning and losing. According to Adil, the only way you can truly lose is if you give up. As long as you're still in the race, still moving forward, you are, by definition, still winning. And that brings us to the end of this explainer, and it leaves us with a question to really think about.
Adil's story shows us the incredible power of just sticking with it. So the question for all of us is, what dream will you refuse to give up on?